Okay, our next session we're going to get ready for is on our data visualization. We've put this at the end because you may have seen this out before. And if you've seen this before, don't stick around with it. There's nothing new. We don't have anything really new to show. If you've seen it all the way through the behavior information, you've seen everything there is to see. There are some recorded sessions available. But the last time we had this training, we tried to do it and it just didn't work for us online. We had to kind of go through it manually and we had to go through it very quickly. So we wanted to bring it back. We'd gotten some requests that they would like to see that. So Nick Easter is here and he's going to go through it with us. Before we actually get started on it, though, I'm going to do my last two slides, and guess what? They just happen to be about data visualization. And we still have some folks that are struggling with being able to get onto data visualization. So we wanted to provide some information on setup. And Nick, I might as well just turn this over to you. This is your thing anyway. Now.
And I decided to follow up on it. The first part of the demonstration, I was going to do a quick run through of how to set it up as well, because it's kind of multiple parts. The first part is that there's a Tableau, Viz, building, and disk user group that they have to be added to, and I found at least one case where someone has gone through and they've changed the group name, and they decided that they didn't like the spaces or something, and so they took out the spaces in between the hyphen, and which threw the whole system off. So it's very specific. It has to be named exactly that. So once you go in and assign the user to the group, the other thing that is important to realize is that it's yesterday's data. It runs nightly, and so some people are like, well, I've given them the access to it, they can't get into it, and we keep having to remind them, you have to wait till the next day. You have to wait till that script runs, so it's the next day to get access to it. And once and that's really the part of the biggest ones. And then the other one is that and we talked about it again this morning with Martin's part of Martin's presentation about the LDAP. If you don't have LDAP, and we're going to look into the SML authentication, but if you're not using your district's email address and password to log into campus, you have to find some workarounds to get access to it.
One of the things we talked about here is that a lot of times we really want to always remind you that this is intended for administrator type of positions. It's not for everybody. It's not for every teacher. So when you get into this site, it carries forward your calendar rights. So if you only have access to a school level, you're only going to see school level. You're not going to see district level. But what it doesn't carry forward is your tool rights. So once you let them into the system, they're going to see all of this data. Now, that might be something we can improve on in time, but with a number of licenses we had and trying to roll this out, we've kind of kept it at the high level. And sometimes the people we're trying to get to and trying to get this information available to are not the people that are in Infinite Campus every day. So there is the outline links that can be used, and sometimes it's easier to access that way than through campus using the outline link. So you can actually just share the link, and once the superintendent or principal wants to go out there, they're just clicking one link. They're not even logging into campus. They are going to log in to get to it, but they're not going to have to go through campus because they might not be your most experienced campus users. Is that fair?
Yeah,
Okay.
It is.
I don't want to criticize anybody unjustly. They might be their best campus user in your school or district, but just there's options there. That's my point there. Anything else on this page?
No, I think that's.
Okay, these are just resources.
Yeah, and those are just resources. And I was gonna pull up the web page too, just to show the actual KDE website. The only thing that I would add in there is the very last resource on the bottom, the data visualization troubleshooting guide. We've tried to put together questions that have been asked about issues that have come up and tried to wrap it up into a troubleshooting guide. And so that is the most recent iteration. It's the most recent update to the page that's out there is a troubleshooting guide. So if there's issues, hopefully that'll help with reading that, pick up reading that and be able to fix help you with troubleshooting those issues. And then if you can, obviously reach out to us or reach out to me. The first thing that I was going to show is this is just our KDE Cases data visualization webpage. Here's all the resources. If I blow it up a little bit more, make it a little bit more readable. One thing that I wanted to point out is that like Dee Dee said, is we do have these training videos, and I think the videos do a good job of really walking through all the different the workbooks and the views, the data we offer. just to point out, if you click on the link, it takes you to this Campus Community logon page. And so you have to have an Infinite Campus account. So I bring this up because we just said, a minute ago, there might be some administrators who don't have access to Infinite Campus or don't use Infinite Campus, but if you just give them this link and they come here, then they're going to have to set up an account for Campus. The easiest way to do it is that when I log in, there's that Campus Community link. And so once you're in Community, then I just click on it and it takes me into the Campus Community. And I just want to show you in the forums. If you go down, scroll down to the Kentucky section, it pops up data visualization as one of our sub-forums. And right there is linked to all 3 of our videos. So we have a video for behavior analysis, we have a video for KY attendance, and we have a video for demographics. If you go into one of them, just as a note, it was done doing a WebEx, so an online web forum. And so in some cases, you really need to go into this URL and download the WebEx player. A lot of us had to do it. We learned by experience that it's just one of those things that to review the videos, you need to use WebEx for it. The other thing that I would note is that if you look at it, we'll see, we've got 48 views for behavior analysis, 16 and 21. We don't have any replies yet. I'm a subscriber to all these, so I get instant notifications. And so you guys can do this with any of the campus forums, but if anyone posts a comment in here, we'd like to see something improved, this would be great to see, any other questions, I'll get an instant notification. I haven't got one yet, but I do have it set up that if you guys do go out there and view it and someone wants to leave a comment back to it, it'll come back to me and I can be able to reach out and answer for it. The first thing that I was going to talk about is how to, real quickly, and we kind of talked about it real briefly just a second ago with those supplemental slides about how to give access to the Tableau. So I was just going to walk you through it. It's a pretty simple process. If I go in and I just search for a user, and I'm selecting an administrator, and it brings me up to the tool rights. I go into the user group tab, and if I just start tapping in to Tableau, there is, I already have it. So,
You don't.
now I do. So there it is, it shows up. You start typing in, it will show you the Tableau Viz building and district. You click on it once, which will give me now rights to it right here. And I click save. And that's it. That's as simple as it is to give rights to it. Now, one of the things that I would have to mention is that you again have to wait for the 24 hours. Once you do wait for the 24 hours to go through, you will see that Tableau visualizations. Let's see if I was going to see if it's going to connect me to me. If you use LDAP, this is what happens. So you go through and it automatically connects you using your authentication in to it using your credentials. If you don't.
And if you don't know what LDAP is, that just means you're using the same credentials to log into your email that you're using to log into your Infinite Campus. And we probably got about 20 districts out there that do that. There's not that many that do that.
So for us, and here at KD, that's the way we were set up. So you can see I could click on the outlying link and it automatically takes me through. The other thing that you can do is I can go in and I can go copy and paste into another browser just the link. And this is where it'll take you up to and say, please select your link, your username and email address and stuff. And for me, any email address that I've gone through for there, it just that's Microsoft shows up. But for you guys, you should be able to do the same thing. You should be able to copy and paste that link right in there, and then they can type in their school email address, their school password. It'll ask if this is a work or school account or a personal account, and then it'll take you through and it'll get you to this page. So it can be done either way. So copying and paste that link works just the same. When you come on to, it's hard to say, there's just a few, so it's hard to know if we have questions or not. So when you come in here, here's your default view. And so a lot of things we talk about is we use the term workbook and views. So a workbook is essentially just a collection of those type of reports. So we currently have 3 workbooks. We have behavior analysis, demographic analysis, and attendance. And so you can see here at the top where it says workbooks, we have 3 workbooks. Of those workbooks, we have 18 different reports between the 3 of them that we have access to. So we're just going to go in and look. I'm going to pick in the demographic analysis one to start off with. Let's see if I can make it just a little bit bigger for everybody. So for the for each one of the workbooks, you can see at the top that I have the ability to, as a tab, to select between each different view. So right now I'm in the student demographic analysis tab view. And then you can see and we've tried to set them up so that they're all very similar in format. So on the right-hand side, going down the right-hand side, you see all your different filters. One of the things that Dee Dee mentioned about is that it's not tool rights, it's calendar rights. So for me, for state edition, I have calendar rights to see all districts, all calendars. So I'm just going to pull it off and just pick a example. I'm going to use Anderson. I'm not going to pick on Port Air. And I'm going to show you just kind of what it would look like as a district view. So as a building level administrator, I would just see my district name there at the top. And then I have the ability to look at it as a school level, which we divide into pre-K, elementary, middle school, and high school.
And if all you've got is one of each of those, it's really not going to look any different than the school. But if you've got multiple elementaries,
Right.
It kind of pulls them all together.
Right. And then in the school names, you can see there are all the different school names. So again, it's by calendar rights. So if I was the principal at Anderson County High School, I would only see Anderson County High School. For your other district level administrators, they would see all schools. So with the filtering, you have a couple of different options. You can select all, you can unselect, and you can pick 1 or 2, or in some cases, if you're a very large district and you have to look for multiple, you can just start typing in the top, and it starts then filtering down to the specific school. So, for our larger districts, then instead of having to scroll up and down and hunt for it, they can just start typing there along the top and pick a school. We have some additional filtering by service type, which means that we can look at primary, secondary, or the special ed only service types. We have the ability to filter by special ed status, so yes, no, or all students. And then we also have economically disadvantaged, and then summer school. So it's starting off as summer school flag is false, or during the school year. It may be the case come summertime that you want to flip on and turn that summer school flag on and start filtering and sorting for your schools that are in summer school.
So I think one of the cool things on this report, though, is if I only want to look at my 10th graders, and I click on that 10th grade bar, it's going to change all my other charts to represent just that 10th grade group. So, that's where it really is can save you a lot of time when you're trying to get numbers. Somebody needs something, you can go into this report and get a quick set of numbers, or you can print off this view to kind of share it maybe with that ninth grade team, where they can kind of see at a glance the population of their schools. The demographics reports, I'm not sure they're the most valuable ones. It's good information. It's high-level information. It might be good for boards and things like that. But it's the foundational data for all the others. If this isn't right, then the other data is not going to be right either. So, that's something that we have to consider. So, if you want to turn off 10, all you do is going to click on that bar again. So, and it's going to turn it right back off, and it's going to go back to the way it was before.
One of the other things that you can do too is if I just clicking on grade 98, there says keep only or exclude. So I can keep only grade 98, or I can actually click on exclude. So I can start going through and excluding grades or levels. I mean, you can filter, right? So I mean, there's the school levels pre-K. I can turn off pre-K, but I could just keep or exclude grade 98s or grade 96s. The other piece in there is that there's a little section that says view data. So that is the general information. It's grade 98. There's 3,732 students. There's a percentage in there, but there's a full data. I'm not going to click on it, but if I clicked on full data, it would actually give me student level detail of every grade 98 student and all their information, their special ed status, their economic status, if they're an English learner, all of that is there. So you can not only filter down, but you have the ability to instantly drill down to that student level detail for each one of those grades. The other nice thing about it is that there is a download button right here at the top. So if I go in for a download, I can select to download. This whole thing is an image. So then I could select download image, and I could select just that image and copy and paste it into a PowerPoint, into a Word document, a newsletter, something that I'm sending out. There's the ability right here that says for data that I could actually download the whole data set as an Excel document. There's a cross tab where I can still download as a Excel document, but it would just be it wouldn't be the student level detail. It'd be the cross tab of the data that's displayed right here, and I can download it as a PDF. The whole thing is just as a PDF document for emailing. The only thing you can't do is there's a Tableau workbook functionality that you guys don't have. That's just it's our admin functionality to download the workbook. But all the others, you have this ability to download any of these views, any of this data, and easily share it with staff. So again, as an image is student level detail, all of that is easily accessible. There are some other views, and I'll just kind of go. Well, I've got lots of time, I guess, so I'll just talk about it. We do have some heat maps. So, I mean, right here we have heat maps by grade and by populations. So Anderson County High School has 294 ninth graders, 271 10th graders, and you can see the circles getting larger and smaller. You can also see that they go by color, that it's through there, so it goes by both color and size. Here is by disability status. So if you look at, here's Anderson County High School, and there is our disability levels up here at top. So autism, developmental delay, et cetera, going down. And then there's just a heat map showing the size and number of those students. There's our grade analysis. And
It's basically the same
thing.
information,
It's
just numbers instead of no bubbles.
Yeah. Going through, and so that's the demographics, and like Dee said, it's the basis for all your information. And in some cases, it's good to have how many, counts of kids, counts of populations, but it's kind of foundational. Let's go attendance, KY attendance next. So we have 4 views in our attendance.
And just kind of as a key, FTE means chronic absenteeism, because it's all based on seat time, and we're using the FTE tables from Infinite Campus on that. So that's going to be the difference between what you traditionally think about as attendance with whole day, half day.
So in this dashboard, we have some other drill downs. So right here you see by level, but I can actually go in and drill down even further, or if I want to go by the district level, I can drill down and get to the actual school counts. So they have some ability to use your plus and minus signs to drill up and down. Again, if I really want to, I could go back in and drill down to the student level, but it does give you some options on, what you want those counts to look like. You still have on the right-hand side, you have your ability to select grades and filter by grade level. I can filter by our school. Not patient enough. So there's all of our schools. And so you have those same filter types. And we try to stay pretty consistent across the board with keeping all the same filters so that you can still filter the data.
And you're able to go down and just choose, you only want to look at chronically absent students. So it's actually, it's right now your numbers look pretty good. But if you click on just chronic absenteeism, your attendance rate's going to go way down. It's going to go down because it's going to be below the 90% ratio.
Yeah, so CA students, yes.
See, it turns colors too. If it's orange, it's probably a problem. At least something to look at.
Yeah, and so we've got it by grade, by month, and so it's some views and getting feedback too. And again, this is one of the things we were talking about. As with all of our other reports, getting feedback about what would be helpful. Is this useful? Is there something else that we could add? Is always appreciated. And
things you can look at that can trigger you hear all the time. Well, Friday's a skip day. They're never going to be there. But look at the numbers. When you looked at the chronic absenteeism, it wasn't necessarily Fridays. And it probably is different in every school, so, at the school level, you can kind of really see, do I have a problem with them coming to school on Tuesday? Is there something I can do to help get people here on Tuesdays? Because attendance means money. So, there's some things that you can do and maybe some that'll kind of jump out at you to see the data. When you're looking at the data like this, that, you may have already known through lots of number crunching, or you may not have known. So it does give you some views that can make the data look a little, can kind of give you some additional insight into your data without crunching it yourself.
Yeah, and so again, it's a lot of these views are different ways of viewing the data. So now we've got FTE by attendance by race, and so let's see, by grade, by level.
And you've got your special, your student groups down here below. Those are key ones that we find that, maybe sometimes struggle a little bit more than others, and it kind of brings that out as, does your special education population have more trouble getting to school than others or not? It may show that it really isn't the case. So it can kind of help you get a feel for whether it's, all your females that are skipping school, not your males, or, and you see those numbers are pretty close here. But, if there's something like that to jump out, it can definitely help you, your English learner students. So it gives you some capabilities of seeing data by subgroup, because this is the data that gets reported. Even to the level of school report card, we report this data. Civil rights data collection gets reported that way. So there's a lot of reporting that goes on. So it gives you a chance to see it. One of the things I always like to report out on, mention about these reports, is we've tried to create these reports that are actionable. Because we've got lots of reports and a lot of reporting that is school report card reporting, CRT. It's kind of in retrospect. By that time, it's too late to do something about it. So what we've tried to focus on, at least initially, is the type of data that you might be able to take action on. So if you can see the data and it's easily provided to you, that it makes the data actionable. We are great collectors of data. We're not as good sometimes, and there's a sometimes in there because you all might be great, but there's a lot of, not as much time in the day as some of us need. And, it's sometimes harder to make use of data. We make sure it's right, we make sure we collect it, but what do we truly do with it to benefit students? So this is a tool that, it's been put together with that thought in mind. Now, that doesn't mean we're not going to get to things like assessment and account, things that are after the fact too. But these, to kind of give you some concept on why we started here, it was looking at areas that could be actionable during the year.
Yeah, and it's just things that come up interesting. So when I went on chronically absent, yes, and I look at the special ed side, I mean, the top one's EBD, so that's our behavior kids. But the one that kind of stands out is that SL, that's speech language kids. So, I mean, the two things I would have thought would have been flagged or could potentially be flagged, I would not have picked my speech language kids as the potential chronically absent students. So it's interesting data, anomalies, things that you wouldn't think about would just pop up in looking at the data this way.
Nick, what's CA student mean? Chronically absent. Okay, duh, sorry.
And so you'll see the reports are very similar when you get into attendance rate. So, you may have your truancy officer that's very interested in chronic absenteeism because that's capturing maybe they're not going to court for these students that are chronically absent, all of them, but it gives them the full picture of kids that are missing part of a class, tardy all the time, things like that. Where your person that is your TPP, they're probably not as interested in the FTE chronic absenteeism report as they are the attendance rate because they're looking at whole day, half day, and trying to get that as high as possible to get as much money coming to the schools and districts as possible. So you have different populations that might be interested in the different type of reports. So not all of these reports are expected to be used by everybody. So, so it's important to kind of take it, not just throw out this set of reports and say, here you go, find what you might need, but think about some of the roles, especially at the administrator level and above, that could really benefit from this information to be able to see some of this.
So, and one thing I'll note is that this whole, okay, so we're back to all.
That's why I slowed down.
I was gonna say, I was like, this is really slow now. So the ones before, I was in, when you're just in a school or a district, it cycled through. This last one, I must have hit the view original button again, and it took me back to all districts. So the one things that you gotta realize, because sometimes it's happened before, even in our own internal discussions, is that we'll go in and we'll pick something and we'll filter down to a district, and we'll filter down to like a subgroup, and then we'll go back and say, okay, let's go look back to another one, and they're like, this data looks really weird, what's going on? And we realized we forgot to reset our filters back to the entire population again. So it's just a thing to be aware of, is that it's great at drilling down, it's great at doing cross sections, it's great at comparing two different subgroups. You just got to remember that it's not so great at it sticks with it as you move from view to view, it sticks with the same settings. And so again, I'm back to to Adair County here. You got to remember that sometimes you got to remember to go back and reset back to your original data set as you look at different views, because the system won't reset itself back to it. It'll keep that same drill down that you had.
So when you all have like
You talk.
Oh, you're good. Yeah.
when you all have like a summary of, with no personal, information on there, but just like like county by county that we could maybe look at for in the region, what are the reason for absences, and
We don't have anything like that you would have available.
I think that might be interesting to see your surrounding counties, because like we might get a call and say, well, how many homeless do you all have? How many, just to compare.
Well, some of that data is in school report card.
Right.
So you do have, you can check, and then there's going to be, so there's some new compare functionalities. It's not going down that deep that you're talking about that's going to roll out with the new school report card, but there is that data in the school report card. But as far as somebody being able to see at a high level, we're not there yet, but it's it's something to think about. I mean, if there's areas that would be helpful and you can't drill down into students and you've got suppression, you get into all these extra things you got to have. When you do that, and we've kept this as like more of an internal document to be able to, an internal tool, so that you don't have to do all the suppression. You can provide access to drill down and find out who you need, who the points are, who the
Right.
Actual individuals are, and maybe drive assistance that can help them.
Yeah, I think like I know some of the co-op regions will do that, do similar things. They'll do data comparisons. They'll take the data from the school report card and compare it by co-op region, and so I know that's there. So I mean that could be a future functionality. In that. Looking at behavior.
There's fewer reports that we can show you on behavior because more of the reports actually start off with student level, so we can't show that to you. We can kind of go through the tabs and kind of explain to you what's on them, but there's a lot more tabs. And just to kind of give you some history on these, for those of you who haven't heard this before, the special education team here came to us and said, hey, we would like to we have some special education money, we'd like to do some of this data visualization. And they picked the behavior data, which was awesome because it was something that was useful, beyond special education. But you'll see the filters on all these screens that do allow those special education directors to drill down just to their students. So don't forget them when you're talking about tool rights and things like that, because this can be a very powerful tool to trying to help that population.
Yeah, and so these are all the different views, and I've kind of cut off the top half, but you see the names. Anything that starts with student automatically shows student level information. So if I clicked on the student event analysis, the kids' names show up. So if I clicked on student event analysis, I mean, I'd have Adair County kids' names popping up. So I can't show you guys anything that starts with student on there, just because it had actually. The part of the view isn't, but we can look at just the regular behavior analysis.
If you go into student event analysis, you're going to see the student that has the most behavior events right on top. And you're going to see on the resolutions, the same thing, the resolutions for those, and that comparison. There's a staff one. You're going to see, we fondly call it the mean teacher report, knowing that some districts do have somebody individual that just enters all the behavior data, and they're always going to be the mean teacher whether they're a teacher or not. But it does show what, every teacher and the behavior instances that they've actually entered.
So in general, the behavior analysis, I mean, we've got going on the left-hand side of the screen, we've got all our event types. And so, we're back up to the state level again. So all of the different event types, we have the resolution types in the second column. We've got events by month. So looking to see who's the big winner. October, Halloween.
Nope.
No.
March, they're ready for spring break.
Oh, all right,
We're
March.
getting ready.
That's right, spring break.
It's coming. They need
Actually, it's February, too.
Yeah.
A little higher.
So.
But you can drill down by month. I like the number of students by week. Actually, let me go back down to
Go to a district.
go to a district.
Go to a big enough district, though. Don't go a little one. Maybe go Barron. And you'll see that there's an option to filter on state or local resolution codes. So if you've really got your own resolution codes and you want to make sure that you're looking at your, a little differently, all you have to do is go change that flag.
So we do have it. I mean, there is by the day of the week, and so no, Tuesday. Huh. So, I mean, but you can filter down by day of the week. You can go by types. There is our expelled, out of schools, restraints, seclusions. I always thought this was interesting. The event locations. I mean, obviously the classroom, but restroom, events, athletic field, 2 field trips, the office. I guess it's possible to get in trouble if you're already in the office. I feel like you're already in the office, you're already in trouble, but yeah, so but it does by location there, and then even time of the day.
But if you click on any of those, then the whole thing changes to just incidences that happen in the cafeteria, right?
Not all of them are drillable like
Yeah,
that, but some of them are.
some of them are and some
Yeah.
of them are not.
Okay.
The attendance ones are the ones I know that don't work quite like that, but looks like this one
Yeah, so this
does.
one is. Yeah.
This is the one I've played with the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, which makes sense. So, most of them are between 11 and noon in the cafeteria, or the biggest event times for the cafeteria events. But again, you can take and go in and out. You can look at just by your special ed population. And so and so there's only your special ed population, students that have their times, the classrooms, the events, the areas. And so you do have the ability to get into some pretty cool things to look at that wouldn't, that take, again, week, the time of day, your locations. So there's a lot of very interesting information that comes through here.
Yeah, it's a pretty powerful tool for a principal to really try to analyze maybe, are there some things, some common things that, could be addressed if you look at the data broken down in all these areas. You get into also some event and resolution analysis that actually does compare some of that based on your special education types, your don't go to staff event analysis, it's got people on it too.
We've got one question on Go Soapbox that I ran into too, that behavior and demographics is populated, but attendance is blank. I think there's some kind of.
There is a bug. So, and I've got one student or one staff member in one county that I know of that we're still trying to figure out why they're not showing up. All the rest of their staff is can see attendance, but there's one staff member. So,
My attendance is blank when I'm picking where I've tried it now, and I think some of your screens weren't showing anything either, so.
Let's stay on this. Let's finish up this one.
Yeah, so I would say,
If you're seeing that issue, shoot Nick an email.
Shoot me an email and look into it. So I know we had one person that we're still trying to work through why they're not showing up. But there is one known issue with that. So yeah, just shoot me an email.
So some of these reports, when you start thinking about equity, in behavior, you can actually see for the same event different resolutions. Now, there's probably really good reasons why you would escalate your resolutions to different categories based on the number of events, but this is a quick way of showing that. It also gives you the capability to, some of these reports give you the capability to actually change the top part. I don't think it's this one. I think it's the next one.
I'm trying to remember if it's by student group, yeah.
This group, yeah. It gives you the opportunity to be able to see, again, from an equity standpoint, here it's defaulting to special education, but we can go over here and change that to be,
We can go, it is student group, so we can go by.
to go to gender. I mean, there'd be plenty of that. And then you can see, as far as the event and resolutions, is there, equity there? Or do you have any issues with, one race being, targeted more so than the other? I don't expect that that's happening, but it gives you a place to make sure that you're kind of watching for any instances of things where you would think there would be any type of inequity. And then the same thing, like the percentage of students with the next, I think they're,
Unduplicated students.
yeah. Because when you look at student groups and you look at numbers, you could have one student that had 5 events, but when you look at the unduplicated students, this gives you a really good, clean percentage. This looks at this is number of students, and you can kind of in your head even think about, okay, I've got this many kids in my school. These are my male and female, but I can change it over here to race, ethnicity, and look at it to be able to see, is there anything that this data shows me? Is there anything I can do to maybe, figure out why the white students are, the percentage of white students may be that much higher. So you have to think about it from that vantage point too. But it's based on the number of, in your school.
And one thing I might add too, and if your special ed director is looking at this, there is a big thing going on with behavior and disproportionality and being able to, and there's being penalized if you're disproportionately disciplining one race ethnicity over another. This is not a calculation for disproportionality. So just let them know that that is a whole separate calculation, and they can't use this to determine if they have, they're going to get penalized for disproportionate representation. So because the fear is if they do get penalized, they have to reserve their federal funds and it affects their federal funding. This is not that calculation. So just throwing it out there for if that comes up or if your sped director asks about it, this is not dealing with disproportionality. It's a whole different calculation. And then this one, so the first one was percent of unduplicated students with events, and then this would be the percent of unduplicated students with resolutions. So again, here, this is looking at your in-school removals, your, come on, little helpful box. Okay, so yeah, so what's, Lisa, help me out. What's SSP 1, 2, 1, and 3? Do you remember what it is? Is it?
One is expelled. 3 is out-of-school suspension, 7 is a restraint, and 8 is a seclusion.
Okay, so that's so there. I mean, those are those resolutions by category. So if you look at it, you know, again, it talks. I mean, it's not for disproportionality, but it does show you the percentage of students that were given those at least those types of removals.
So we really encourage you, there's some powerful reports on there that we can't show you on this behavior module just because of the student or staff names that are on there. It wouldn't be fair. So, you know, but we do encourage you to explore. If you've got a staff meeting coming up where you've got your leaders, ask for a little time. You know, try to promote this. If you think, if you think they'll do it, the videos are easy, that, they can just, go into campus community and watch the videos at any time. But sometimes it takes getting this in front of them and seeing what's done so that they can ask you questions to really see the power in the data. And we've all gotten used to our Excel reports and things like that. And, some people are really good at pivot tables and they're really good at filtering the reports and can make a lot of those. Others just get overwhelmed when they see this large report and nothing gets done with the data. So this is just a different approach to using data, and it's one that we've gotten some great feedback on. We've had some districts that have worked with us to help us kind of lead us in and provide direction and guidance to us. So, and we appreciate that input, but we expect that we're going to get a lot more of that as more folks are using it. Any other questions? I don't have any questions online, or is there anything else that you want to cover?
I don't think so. I mean, that's pretty.
I know when I was on school-based decision-making council, our principal would bring in maybe once a quarter, and we'd look at some analysis of behavior like this, but he was working hard at getting this kind of breakdowns about what teachers were doing, the write-ups and that kind of stuff. So this can be a tool that your site-based council might want access. They don't individually need access. They're not going to have the accounts, but they might want to review it.
Right. And it can be easy as, printing up some reports, to show what they feel like is important. Because you can tell there's lots of reports in here, and it's a lot to consume. It's really about getting in there and finding which ones are helpful to you. Because any two of you probably wouldn't tell me that they like the same report. So it's really about thinking about your role or the person's role you're working with and what they do and what could be the most helpful. We had a question, come in earlier today about this and the behavior reports, and the question was about the behavior events when they transfer from one school to the other within a district or one school to the other. The behavior events come with them, and while that, in some areas that might make sense because you'd want to see that, maybe the student had some behavior events at another school, trying to compare it to what they use for Swiss. It didn't do that. So for their reporting, it inflates their behavior numbers for that school when you're looking at here. So it might be something that we can talk to the developers of this to see if there's any way that we can just make it only, give it a filter to show only behavior events for that school. And I have to, this was just a quick conversation we had today. We're going to have to look into that and exactly how it works a little bit more because I wasn't completely sure. But that's something that, we appreciate the feedback. We want to we want to continue to fine tune these. And honestly, we want to continue to grow these. So, we've started with 3 areas. We're kind of trying to decide right now where we go next, what could be the most helpful to districts. So if you have ideas, that's always welcome.
And I guess I was just thinking that we do have 3 years worth of data. So we have 16, 17, 17, 18, 18, 19. So obviously 16, 17, and 17, 18, they're static. Those years are out. 18, 19, which is where it defaulted to, that's updated nightly. But one thing that I mentioned is that, you can add 2 years worth of data, or I could select all 3 years worth of data. We don't have the ability to compare one year to the next. So we don't have a current view right now that would take, this report right here for 17, 18 and stick the same report for 16, 17 underneath it. That's one of those cases where you'd need to download the visualization as like as whether in Excel or whether just as a picture and then add those there. So we don't actually have the ability to compare on the same screen one year's data versus another. So again, it might be enhanced functionality, but someone did ask me that question in an email previously about that ability to do that, and the system doesn't have that functionality at this time for that.
At one time, there were some of the screens that did have that. So if I chose 2 screens, it would show it to me side by side. It shows 2 years. It would show it to me side by side. It did scrunch up things. I just can't remember which screens it was. We'll have to play around with that to see if that functionality does still exist or somehow, as we continue developing, that dropped off, because we did have the capability and wanted to be able to look at trends and look at things that, are they consistent from prior year, or is something happened this year that's maybe different than prior years. So some of these, and so play around with it, and we'll do the same thing. But I think at least at one time there was some capability to see more than 1 year on a page, but it really scrunches stuff up. There's a lot of data on each of these pages. And if that's, if there's a real need and stuff like that, some of the things that are, not hard because the data's already in there, to create a view to show multiple years or show a trend line.
Well, and just a reminder, if you are comparing years, the event names this year changed. We reorganized our behavior modules to run by event type that is state mapped instead of law and board violation codes. So comparing one to the other right now might be difficult because you're not going to have the same. But resolutions are still comparable because they haven't changed. So
in that case, I'll just end with leaving my contact. That's my contact information. So if they need to call or email, just reach out to me. Or again, if there's whoever was having the issue with the attendance, just reach out to me and we'll continue to look into that as well.